We're live.
We are.
Live.
No warning.
Nope. Not even a little one.
Nope.
So
we actually had a reschedule.
Yes.
So instead of resting,
what's rest?
We're gonna talk to you.
Yeah. Let's see. It was interesting because we had a poll question about. Hi. What do you really want to know about this connection? So I guess we'll kind of open it with that, so you guys know what to post on the side.
What do you want to know about this connection?
I had a really interesting question, which was, how did you go from being how you were? What was the catalyst for change to you in this connection? You know, how did you change from being how you were, who you were, to how you got to be where you are now? And I would tell you.
Just a quick side note for the person with the hearts there. Our office manager said something about an email that you were going to be sending, but I haven't seen it. It hasn't come across. So I just want her to know.
Okay.
That I've been watching for it.
Oh.
Okay. That's all.
Okay. Yes. And I think it's the one with the 3 hearts?
Yes, the one with the 3 pink hearts.
Hello. So what was the big catalyst for change? And I don't know necessarily I can give a really good answer to that, so I'll just answer it the way only Lee can answer it. I talked to myself. Did I just mention myself in the third person?
You did.
I did.
I wasn't going to mention it. It's fine.
So
why do I automatically go into self-judge mode as soon as we go live?
I think your hair looks fantastic. You guys all like her hair.
We cut the dead off of it.
Doesn't look good.
It's not dead anymore.
She gets such a pretty.
Not dead. That's all.
Anyway, no wooden spoons. See, you look beautiful. Told you. No, we're not. There is no spoon.
Like.
That Matrix though. Yeah, we'll talk about. Yeah, we need to talk about that anyway because I wasn't killing your party.
Yeah, you did.
I was suggesting somebody else do it because I'm tired of cleaning up.
That's killing my party.
I'm sorry. Oh, so the catalyst for change.
That's over.
Well, we opened it up in the group about what kinds of questions do you have about this connection. I would say that we have a very unique way of explaining connection because we really, really feel this connection deep within. And when we share that and we talk about it, and then when we talk about it with you guys actually kind of get how we got there, but you don't necessarily get what the steps were to follow that. So when I was going through metamorphosis, I had to go back into my pain.
Is that 3D word for twin flame slang, dark night of the soul?
Absolutely. When that occurred
twin flame slang. Let's make a dictionary. I get the best idea.
For twin flame slang.
Twin flame, like the Urban Dictionary.
Oh, have a dictionary for
have a twin flame dictionary.
Oh.
Twin flame slang.
Oh, welcome for your first time.
Welcome.
So I went back in, the dark night of the soul is the way that it's interpreted. So what happened was I had to look at what was my current connection to my pain. And a majority of my life, I've been running from my pain. A majority of my life, I've been ignoring my pain. For a majority of my life, I've been literally discarding what pain actually was. But it didn't realize that pain itself was creative energy. Going back into the pain let me see a relationship to myself and that pain, to understand why it was I was running from anything that was going to cause me pain. What if we've had that all wrong? I mean, we literally have talked about this numerous times, but when you go back into the pain, you actually create a story about you and what pain you actually went through, but you don't see the role that you start playing because you tell the story. When our connection started to really get stronger, I started to realize that I started telling a story again about what my pain was and how I got there and all the excuses we create because we don't want to go into our pain. I just went into it. I think ever since then, every dark night of the soul I've had, I've realized that it's best to go into the pain because I'm going to actually be able to hear the story I'm telling myself relative to pain. Then I get to see my connection to pain. The more she wanted to be closer to me, the more I would have to embrace my pain, because I'm not going to let her love something I don't love. In this connection, if you are running from your pain, ignoring your pain, creating new pain, creating a new story of pain, you're actually running away from connection. Does that make sense? I'm sure that
Who
makes sense.
forgot to turn off the bells and whistles?
Me, and I'll go get it. So,
It'll run out.
Eventually. So it's just going to be kind of loud because of that voice that's going to show up. So needless to say, what happened in the pain was actually me controlling, me dictating, me trying to tell something about the pain that really didn't make any sense to do. When she started asking me more questions about my pain, I started sharing more information about my pain. And actually the information itself started to become, she started asking what was true and what was not true. And then I started to realize that there was something I was probably adding to the pain that actually wasn't necessarily pain itself. We don't like to do things that actually, or we don't like to do things that actually negate or go away from what we're actually saying. We know that if you get to the bottom line of the truth of why somebody does something, you can find compassion. If you don't find compassion, you haven't found the truth. The truth is acceptable. And if you find ways to not accept your truth, you find ways to hurt yourself without even realizing that that's exactly what you're doing. This hurt that you cause isn't your pain. It's what came from it. So when we were talking and she really was asking and she was really just listening, she did so without an element of judgment. And that kind of judgment kind of left me. I think a lot of people call that the bubble face, which literally you are without judgment and you actually can love one.
Another word for the dictionary.
Another word for the dictionary. Yeah, that word.
Bubble phase, bubble love phase.
So
the 3D word for that would be the honeymoon stage.
Yes, the stage where you go in without judgment of self and judgment of anyone else and judgment, and you literally can share things in a space where you feel free. And that's what's so powerful about that love in those moments. And it's like connects you. But then you start to get back into old patterns, old programming, and you get back into old conditioning. And then your old relationship to yourself returns, this time much more powerful, because now you need to look and keep observing the other person to see when they're going to reject you without even seeing that you rejecting yourself. This is where the mirror comes in. And this is where they actually can only repeat what you do to yourself. This cycle continued until I think we realized that, wait a minute, it was a cycle, a circle of effect that we didn't need. Mm-hmm. This connection was powerful enough for us to reflect back to each other what we were doing to one another because of the story we were telling ourselves. Is your connection doing that for you? And if so, are you walking yourself through it so you can actually see that there are going to be parts to yourself that you won't love, that you're going to make or force your twin not to love about you? They can't go through that space until you do. So hopefully that answered the question of how I developed or understood how I was going to change. I changed because I wasn't my story anymore. I changed because the story I was telling myself based on past wasn't exactly who I told myself I was. I was literally playing a role designed from my story of the past. And we're all a product of our past, but we don't have to be. Change it. So I hope that makes sense. Questions? Did you have anything?
No.
Was that fun?
I'm impressed.
Well, why? Because I stayed human?
No, I'm not.
I didn't stay human? Okay.
You made sense.
And if you can make sense, you can make change.
Oh, I knew it was coming.
No, you did.
It's fine. I let him have one every now and then.
Every now and then. TF Dictionary would be great. How do you deal with a TF that struggles with sexual predator type behavior? He is into the cam girls, watching girls online, starting emotional sexual connections online.
Can I start real quick?
Yes.
Because we all know that I have a little bit of different view when it comes to porn. I think females, I'm just going to throw out my opinion here real quick. I think that, and not even females, but even, I think we come down on our partners too much over this type of stuff. I personally don't feel, you got to hear me out here because there's a but. Unfortunately, there's always one. But I personally don't feel that pornography, if you're viewing, is harmful. I mean, I'm not an activist, so I'm not going to get into women's rights and the activism and all this stuff. And I'm not going to do that. But I will say that, or objectifying, whatever. Anyway, that word just came to me. Anyway, that's a whole different political thing. I personally feel it's a choice, but that's whatever. It's a profession. Choose to do it. Choose, you know what I mean? If you're not choosing to, let's not go there. Anyway, if you're not choosing to do it, there's a problem. But let's talk about people viewing porn. I just feel like I mean, I don't watch porn anymore. I haven't in a long time. I haven't since I've met you because you took away that. That's not a bad thing. Okay. A lot of times when we're stuck in a human or a 5D play, or I'm sorry, a 3D place, right? There's more words for your dictionary. When it comes to sex, it takes a minute to get there. And if you're in a 3D space, a lot of times it's images and sounds and tastes and smell and to get you to where you're trying to get to. I've personally never had a problem with it. If you were sitting and watching porn in the bathroom or in the bed, it wouldn't bother me. It just wouldn't. And I just think some people take it to a level like, oh my God, he's watching porn. He's such an ass. He's so gross. It just, first of all, it's judgment, and it bothers me. However, let's talk about the but. If the word used here was kind of disturbing because you said that with sexual predator type behavior. That's interesting because that can be taken in a couple different ways. He's into the cam girls, watching girls online, starting, emotional sexual connections online. So predator to me is if he is watching someone or enjoying something that's illegal. If the girls that he's watching on cam are underage or do not choose to be engaging in that activity, that would sort of make him a predator.
Okay.
But if he's watching porn, something that gets him where he's trying to be,
okay,
right? And it's legal and they're consenting adults. I don't feel there's anything wrong with it unless it's a problem that he's viewing constantly. And, he's starting emotional sexual connections online. To me, this is a self-worth issue. And if he's looking for those types of connections and things online, and if he's reaching out and talking to females and they're engaging with him and boosting his ego and boosting his self-esteem. This is, by the way, if he's not in a committed relationship and or married, right? I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
But if he's a single guy, even if he has a connection, we all do, right? So for instance, when you and I were not together, for instance, just talking, right, dating, and you were out there, he was doing much worse, but nevertheless, I always have to throw that in there. I feel like a lot of times we
isn't is, so I take no offense.
Okay. I just feel like there's an overreaction a lot of times. And I don't know in this case if it is or not, but I just feel that if he's being a predator, there's a problem. If there's girls underage, there's a problem. I know that there was a second part to that question. If it's an addiction, he's struggled with all his life. He's ruined all relationships over his addiction. like we had struggled. He only comes to me in 5D. I won't tolerate lying and deception. Well, if he's lying to you over the porn, it's because he feels like he's going to be judged for it. And that he could lose another relationship over it. And honestly, as someone who's connected, we should be the ones who, in loving unconditionally, and those cycles will break naturally. You know, I made a joke in a session last night when we were, I'm going to use a word and I'm probably going to get Roseanne for, but because none of these lovely ladies were hoes. They were great, lovely ladies. It was Lee that was the hoe. But I was making a joke yesterday because we went to the grocery store and Lee threw a box of ho-hos in the cart. I said, I see you still have a problem with hoes. It's just a totally different problem. Nevertheless, it's judgment brings shame and guilt. And if your change, that's where I was getting to with the whole grocery situation, your change from being a womanizer, someone who was actually acting on these things, and you were creating emotional connections all over the place. To me, it's very similar to someone who is pushing themselves into porn or watching constantly or 24 hours. You know, if you're watching an hour before you go to bed or whatever, I'm not seeing that as an issue. But if this for real is an issue, I'm seeing it as a self-worth thing, as a self-esteem thing. And then what happens is they get judged for it so much that it puts them deeper and deeper into that addiction. And then it becomes a full-fledged addiction, right? I viewed a lot of porn in my day. I'm not going to lie to you, a lot of porn. There was some particular porn that I actually was drawn to. And then when I tried to make that happen in real life, it looked nothing like it did on the screen. I promise. It was just horrible. It was just bad. And it's not reality what you're seeing. These people are clearly not, they're being stopped every 5 or 10 seconds to change positions and move into the lighting a different way. This isn't a constant, they're not filming somebody in this act all the way through. It's acting. What you're seeing is if you're watching Inside Edition or if you're watching The Young and the Restless, it's a show. They're being stopped every so often.
Right.
The perfection that comes on the screen, even with this reality, the family of girls and one boy and the momager, I'm not going to say their names, but their lives aren't that perfect. They're not. What you're seeing on screen isn't what it is, right? And so it's a fantasy. So that to me, it's acting. So that to me, you can get caught up in it. And I get it. You can get caught up in it. But as someone who's connected to that person, my advice and opinion would be to embrace all of him, even his addictions. Love him unconditionally. Do not judge him and do not belittle him and do not make him feel guilty or shame for what he's doing. Help him go into healing. And this connection is healing. The connection is healing in itself. So this connection is what could refocus him, if that makes sense.
I agree. One of the things that we have kind of gone through as well is realizing that because of the evolution or what we've experienced over the last 40, 50 years with seeing things on screen, seeing things in books, and really kind of paying attention to that, we're not seeing the communication that builds the receptors in the brain to make it keep doing such a thing. Because of that, we're not paying attention to the communication of what is actually being communicated through in that way. which sometimes can be very releasing to somebody, or somebody who wants to have that fantasy, but not understanding that that fantasy is not reality, but it could be if they communicated it. So when somebody's actually looking at these types of things, they're looking at it, and then yes, there's going to be shame and guilt along with it, but there's also going to be some form of release and communication that is not had, whether it's even one-sided. Seeing it and paying attention to it does something and creates some form of chemical in the brain that does something to somebody. And you're not listening to that part. You're paying attention to the act itself, and then paying attention to the fact that you're excluded from that act. This isn't abandonment of you. This is abandonment of what was probably taught. I have yet to meet somebody who says, yes, my parents sat down with, you're the only person I've known in my entire life who will sit down with their kids and talk about every aspect of sex. You have no filter, because what's happened is we've gotten away from not having a filter, as though a child is going to go out into the world and be shunned and stay away from something that they'll never actually get the ability to understand. Then they find the internet, then they find books, they find all of these different things, and they learn something that nobody's talking about. And when we're talking about it, there's a form of guilt that comes with it, as if it's never going to be a form of communication in their life. It is a form of communication. When you share your body, you're communicating. And if you don't see that there's a communication gap or a space there where somebody doesn't have the ability to speak, you need to understand that they have things that they want to say, things that they feel, things that they're experiencing, and their ability to communicate it could be impacted. They're going to have shame and guilt just for that by itself. And do you want them to stay alone in that space? Or do you want to listen to understand in that space? That's where compassion comes in. If you're not listening to understand, what are you doing? And I think that's where we all get isolated. And that's exactly what happens when we get isolated in connection. When I heard you first time, I mean, it was uncomfortable for me at first, but then I started to realize, where are they going to have these kinds of conversations without you opening it up to make it seem like it was comfortable, and they didn't have to have shame and guilt around it? And there wasn't. And I was like, wow, ooh, this is intense, because I didn't have somebody do that for me. And probably some of you probably didn't have somebody, a parent who sat down with you and said, let's talk about sex. Let's talk about what it is. And I guarantee you, if you follow this back to the person who's sitting there watching porn, who's watching all this stuff, I guarantee you the communication of sex has been nothing. So they only have this space to go into where they actually don't have to be seen or heard. And even if they are being seen or heard, there is something that has an emotional attachment and a connection to, but they're going to disconnect from you because that's in space. And there is a slight rejection that you are going to experience from this, but I think you should be listening so you can connect to it rather than disconnect from it.
Mm-hmm. That's rather than making it a problem.
Yeah, because it's not giving you the understanding of the why. It's not giving you the understanding of where did this come from? Because if this person had to learn this or started experiencing this at 11 years old, and now they're 40, this was a greater part of what they had to hide from the world that literally they just haven't had a space to talk in. And it's okay if they don't have the words right away. Just you telling them, hey, it's okay to talk to me about this to help me understand you and see your connection to it. Because if you don't want to see their connection to it, you don't want to see being connected to them. I mean, it is a way to abandon and reject them, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I would say look at it from at least the lens that says, this is what they're doing. But there's probably a space behind what they're doing that maybe I should listen to. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything, I don't think. But I could be wrong. I'm saying, I want to go back. My TF met someone before me who she felt a deep connection to, and it was how she came across the idea of twin flames, is meeting another soul connection that's similar to the actual TF comment. We're now in separation, and she would rather apply the TF label to him rather than me, even though we've dreamt of each other since childhood, have had syncs, and had been intimate telepathically.
You know, here's the thing, and you guys, a lot of you have seen our videos, and you probably heard our answer to this a lot. You know, Lee and I personally feel our belief system is that you've one twin flame, not multiple. There's not 20. There's one. However, there's I feel in my belief system, so please don't lynch me. There are multiple soulmates. And I do feel that that those come into alignment. I do feel those come into alignment first. Here's the thing. If we could all pick our twin, we would all pick our twin. Right? I mean, look, when I first met this guy, my senses, and when I say my senses, my 3D senses were heightened. The image of when I very first laid eyes on him was etched in my brain forever. The way he was standing, what he was leaning on, what he was wearing, everything. He was so visually pleasing to me. And although my eyes were bulging, right? My soul was, my intuition was throwing up flags, right? Throwing up flags. In our 3D world, most oftentimes we don't listen to those flags that our intuition's telling us because it's so visually pleasing. And sometimes we don't even care, right? I don't care. I don't care that he's robbed 12 banks. He's gorgeous, right? And I want to be associated with that. Well, then, you get to there, and in this dynamic, you really get to know this person. Should we not had figured out this twin flame dynamic, this thing, we wouldn't be sitting here today because I never would have chosen. And there's a reason for that. I wouldn't have let it go so far that I would have let him see in me. Right? And sometimes it can't be helped, but when he looked in my eyes, I knew that he could see something deeper than anybody else had, and it scared me. Now I could have went away forever. And I didn't. There was that 2-year separation that we had, but even after that, brought on so much. You've seen our journey, right? I would never have gone through that the first time. Keep in mind, knowing what I know now, I would do it all over again 100 times.
You would marry somebody else?
Yes.
I think that will answer somebody's question.
Yeah, I would have.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a specific answer for that one too.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I wouldn't have. There was too much. It was too much. It was too much, way too much. If we wouldn't have had that spiritual connection, that push in that pool, more free dictionary, that push in that pool, right? We wouldn't be sitting here because I had enough. You had enough at different times, right? But I feel like I feel like I was prompted. I feel like I was conditioned for that by relationships I had with others that were somewhat close in connection. Right. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. The difference is the spiritual connection is there, but it's not as deep. And Lee and I there's, a lot of people think, oh, twin flames, they're so cool. They like all the same things and they taste each other's food and they think the thing. And you know what? We don't like the same foods. We don't like the same musics. We don't have a whole shit ton in common. But we adjust.
I actually do embrace a lot of the things that you do. Like it's just that there's a space in me where I tell myself you won't adjust to the things that I like.
The word is adjust.
Adjust.
Okay, the word right. You're using is adjust. Mm-hmm. There's an adjustment period there. Yes. Right? And in soulmate type of relationships, you don't have to have that adjustment because everything's perfect and the same, and you like the same things, and you're eating Chinese every Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you like the same music, and you like the same movies, and everything's beautiful and blissful until it
Mm.
falls apart. That adjustment isn't there.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When you come into the twin flame dynamic, that adjustment is there. It's automatic adjustment.
I think that it is there, but I also believe that the depth can only go as deep as you are to yourself. And I believe in this connection, that's what it forces you into. You don't really, I don't think you really experience yourself in connection to yourself until this connection finds you. And when this connection finds you, it does something to you that you really don't have a choice in. It will make you be by yourself. It'll put you in a space where you're not being chosen. It'll put you in a space where you're being abandoned and rejected over and over again. And you're pointing at another person and the mirror points back at you because it makes you see things about yourself you otherwise would have never seen. And it's almost like it takes a snapshot of you in that space and forces you to look at it, and you think the other person took the picture. And literally, it's how you have been picturing yourself, or put yourself in this space where you didn't know that there was a part of yourself that was completely against yourself. Being connected to yourself, understanding yourself, embracing yourself, you literally know how to make yourself miserable. And you think that the other person has all of the issues, but the way that you're pointing out their issues, you don't see an issue with. You don't see that what you're looking for is you're looking for somebody who's going to fully accept you, fully embrace you, but you're going to be pointing out things that you don't embrace in them. And that does have a reflection back to you. And you don't even see that that breaks the communication. It destroys you because you think they're the problem. How do you listen to somebody you love with no conditions? And why do you keep creating them? And why do they keep coming up in you? And what would happen if you just realized that, wait a minute, I don't want them to label me. I don't want them to be ashamed or feel guilt towards me. I don't want them to have all of these things. So why am I doing this to them? And where did I learn how to do it? So this is the space where you actually could come into this world and change it, or this is the space where you're going to get more of the same in a very deep way, and it's going to make you miserable. I think that's literally, I believe that's the big difference between this connection and any other connection, is there's going to be one connection that's going to reflect back to you more abruptly, more clearly, the way you are to yourself. And the deeper the connection is, the more powerful and the more eye-opening the connection is going to be in that presence. It's just going to be, you keep doing it to me, so I'm doing it to you. So literally, it's almost like that's exactly what happens. It happens in a way that it really kind of reflects back to you who you are to yourself. And the way that you may not share things, or the way you may feel about things in here, the other person's going to bring out in you without choice. You can't, it's almost like you can't escape until you realize there is no escape. There's only embrace and acceptance. And even the things you don't accept, you're going to be forced to accept. And it is the most painful experience, but it's the most beautiful experience at the same time. Remember, pain is birth. It's how we all got here. It's how we all came into this world. You came through a threshold of pain. Don't worry, this is going to immerse you back into that. And the more you let go of what you think, the stronger the connection comes, the stronger the connection can flourish. The more you'll see the understanding why this connection found you. It's the one thing that's going to give you the one thing nothing else has. It's going to give you yourself and your place in the world, and the place where you find your space. You actually are in control of the universe in this connection. You just don't see how you're making yourself miserable versus how you're making yourself happy. I don't know if that made sense.
Made sense. I want to comment on this real quick, because this is taken. There was the person that was talking about the porn. He was up all night since I met him in 2005 doing it. He's married and separated because he did this. That's not the reason he married and separated. That is not the reason. There's a root to that. That's the reason he's separated. That's the reason he can't keep a relationship. It's not the porn. The porn is a product of of the problem.
Yeah, the communication breakdown. Why is my twin flame marrying someone else? It really breaks my heart. We had an argument. He left me hanging, no closure. We haven't talked in years. Now I found out he's engaged.
All right, I'll start. because I did it.
Mm.
And if you've seen our journey, you know why I did it. I married someone else for security, and fear.
Mm.
A billion different reasons. I knew that something in you could see something in me that nobody else could see, and I didn't want that to happen.
Would you say that I could see how you rejected yourself?
Yes. And I didn't want anybody to see any weakness in me at all. So I came across someone, God, I hope Ron doesn't watch this.
Videos, of course he's gonna watch it.
I know. There was a point in time in my life after I had met him, and we were in that 2-year separation. He had left. I had met Ron while Lee and I were still seeing one another briefly. And then he left, and I knew he wasn't coming back. And so I continued to date, knowing that there was something different about him. And that's where my soul was. I knew that. I was at a point in time in my life where I was tired of dating. I was tired of not having the family unit that I so always wanted and just desired. That was sort of instilled in me by my grandmother, but my family was torn apart in many different ways. So I wanted to generate that in my family. So I did marry out of security, not money because he didn't have any at all, but a house, a couple dogs, a fence, kids, and that's it. The American dream, right? And I got it. And then I had to go through the process of realizing that I was not only lying to myself, I was lying to him and everybody else. So, and it wasn't fair, and I was living in hell in here. Fear often does this. The what I want to touch on in this question is, where is it? Okay. We had an argument. He left me hanging, no closure. Oh, there's closure. He's marrying someone else. He isn't choosing you at this moment. And we're seeing a lot of this lately. And that doesn't mean he's not going to choose you in the next moment. That doesn't mean he's not going to choose you 5 years from now, or 20 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 2 days from now. We don't know that. You don't know that. He has to choose himself first. If you are truly connected and you are truly twin flames, he will find his way back to you. No matter how long it takes, this may be something he needs to go through. And there may be lessons to be learned, and there may be messages in this. And if I wouldn't have married Ron, I wouldn't have my son. I wouldn't have Cameron. Can't imagine my life without Cameron. There may be, could you imagine?
No.
Right. So it's interesting that twin goes off to marry somebody else, and everybody's freaking the hell out like it's the end of the world, the end of their connection. And it's not. And it may very well just be the beginning.
I think the only thing I would add is we had an argument. He left me hanging. We're seeing what she's saying. We're seeing this a lot. Here's what we're seeing. We're seeing one in this deep connection saying, I love you, and the other saying you couldn't possibly.
Right.
What that means is there's a space in there within the person who should be receiving that this person is trying to tell them how they feel, and they're trying to make it why they shouldn't, or they're trying to tell them why they don't, and they're trying to point out their actions around it. What they're not seeing is your own actions towards yourself that refuse or abandon what they're actually trying to say, how they're trying to get it out, how they're trying to come across. Have you found that you, in this connection, make it difficult for the other person to love you? Let that sink in. But there is a space there. If you had an argument, how did you come back from that argument to really listen to what was actually being argued? Then did you have a defense or a line where you needed to be right, or a line where you told the other person they were wrong, and this is what caused the closed door? Because sometimes we want to stand for what's right, but we're not standing for what's open. And that literally causes very painful conversations and communication, and then lack of communication because we're too busy being right, we're too busy being wrong, or we're too busy just defending, which is still an attack. I mean, literally, how does this person know that your heart is open to them and you want to resolve what the conflict was? How did you actually go back and say, we had an argument and then he left me hanging? What was the argument? What was your stance in the argument? And did you just finally say, I surrender, so that way you guys could come to resolution? Because what we want for them to do is come back and point out how we're right. We're not wanting to come back and love us. We want to be right about something. And is your defense about being right, or is your defense about being, and in which case, how did you receive? And then how did you give it? I go back and look at that, because what you could do is recapture what you're trying to be in that space and finally let go of it. Because sometimes that is the closed door. The other person maybe not have closed it, maybe you did. Sometimes that could be the case. But when we're not open to things, we're going to be closed to it. Hopefully that it helps you. I always struggled with my weight. My twin has brought it up a couple of times, and it would trigger me. Even though he calls me beautiful, I keep thinking if I was thinner, we would be together. Any advice?
Oh.
Well, do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. I keep thinking if I was thinner, we would be together. So you're already setting up a goal that you are going to meet or you're going to, but you've also pointed out that you're struggling. Why can't you just accept? Because once you accept that you're beautiful, no matter what weight you are, aren't you allowing yourself to see through his eyes? Especially if you keep saying it. Your rejection comes in when you look at your weight and you struggle with it. The word struggle, does that mean reject? Look at the word itself and look at how you've labeled that word against your own heart, when they may be trying to come around or show you things that are on the other side of this that you're refusing to see because of your reflection of self. If you're against yourself in this space, how's he supposed to choose you? How's anyone supposed to choose you? What is it that put the weight on? What is it that is the direct reflect here? What is it that you say to yourself based in this space? And do you expect to hear compliments, or do you receive compliments? Do you receive what's being said to you if you don't feel that way about yourself? Who's rejecting who in this space? He actually gets rejected for telling you you're beautiful because you don't believe it yourself. The struggle is the rejection. How do you fix that?
Pretty much said a lot of what I was going to say, but I'm going to personalize this.
Okay.
Because I have also struggled with my weight my entire life. That's not true. Not my entire life. When I became about 11, I put on the weight. I put on weight. I was always a skinny kid, just a little scrawny thing. I had to go back and figure out why I put the weight on, what happened in my life. And I know why the weight is here. It's interesting story. I put on weight when I began to suffer sexual molestation by my stepfather. Subconsciously thought if I was heavier, I wouldn't be as attractive to him. And he wouldn't want to be with me, which was not the case. So as I got older and I got married, it was a roller coaster. I would take the weight off and I would be a lot thinner. But then there was a lot of physical abuse. So subconsciously, I know what was going on, that, you know, if I was heavier, it wouldn't hurt as much. There's a little bit more padding for the fall, right? I I'd be stronger and bigger, and maybe he wouldn't come at me as much, right? So I kept the weight on. Sometimes I would take it off, and then other times I would put it on. I've struggled with this roller coaster for years now. And what is most interesting to me is there was a point in time in my life that I had taken the weight off. And it's to the point now where I know I don't need it for protection. Try telling this that. Okay? Try telling this that. That my soul knows that I don't need this weight here. But you can't tell your mind, because the mind will come back with 50 different things, right? And my sisters are always doing these fad diets, and they're always taking off weight, putting weight on, taking off weight, put up. I come to a conclusion last year, actually, that I'm just not going to do that anymore. That I'm just going to try to eat healthy, and I'm going to try to be more active. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But it's an acceptance that I had to make. That, you know what, I'm healthy, I'm fine. I could drop a few pounds. I don't want to gain any. And if I drop a few pounds, I'm happy. You know, if I drop it all, I'm ecstatic. And I think it's a mind. I almost said that. Did I say it?
Look at there.
Oh,
Stop looking at me.
It is. It's a lot of mind noise. If you're feeling judged, you're judging yourself first. That's big. That's big. I can't watch these videos. I will self-judge myself to death. I've got more chins than a Chinese phone book.
We would have taken down all our videos at this point.
All the videos.
If we would have watched. We don't watch our own shit.
I have no hair. My hair's a mess. I'm overweight, and I feel okay. And I'm not. And I have good days and I have bad days. I think what pulled me out of a judgment stage where Lee is concerned is that when I see Lee now, and I know that I talked earlier about my eyes bulging and physical appearance, and I see that still if I'm seeing through 3D eyes. If I'm looking through 5D eyes, I see Lee in a completely different light. And I was shown once in a vision or a dream or whatever that he sees me in that 5D light, not in the 3D light. And I guess that sort of did something to me that I was like, okay, well, he loves me regardless, right? This is just an inner struggle now. Anyway, I hope that
I love your essence. Your essence is actually what draws me and actually allows me to see you in all the ways you see yourself, but it allows me to see deeper in it. So I see your essence, and I've been in love with you ever since. Still am, just as deep, just as powerful as before. It's interesting though, because when you look to think what I'm actually feeling is I feel the way you feel about you, but I see past it. And I think that's a space where we actually do experience still rejection, because she doesn't see that I could see that way, but I literally experience her in that way. Loving your essence, the energy that actually allows you to animate, allows you to move, allows you to function, allows you to think, allows you to breathe, is where I'm loving you. And even in that space of loving you in that space, I see that there's going to be those opposites, and I love those too. I have found that it makes more sense for me to love you in a space that literally doesn't have time, it just has space. I'm much happier. And I think doing that for you is a reflection because I'm doing that for me. So hopefully that makes sense with what that would mean if you just let go of that. Can you love your essence and allow your essence to be your God? Sherry's been embracing her essence for the last year, but I've been embracing her essence since we met.
This is a follow-up from the other question about the guy that's getting married. If he has moved on, why do I still think about him? I can't get him off my mind. It's been years of separation. Same, it happens. We talk to people all day, every day who's in separation, been in separation for years, sometimes 20, sometimes 25 years. And that's all that they think about. That's all that, and it happened to me too.
Yeah.
It happened to me too. It does. It's a connection. You're connected to them. You're connected to them in a spiritual way. It's beyond a soulmate type of thing. The connection's always going to be there, and you're always going to. You just are.
Yeah.
That person's always going to be there.
And you also learn how to live or be in love with somebody who's not in your life. So there is a space in you that you actually have to go into to learn, but understand what you've told yourself and understand how you got there. We learn to live without people we love every day. And once you actually learn, you don't realize that you can actually put your person that you're directly connected to in that space and suffer. And it is a state of suffering that you don't really realize you're participating in, but you haven't got into it to understand why you participate in it. What was your job before? I'm struggling to find which activity would be in alignment with myself.
Interesting question. Lee did retail for
26 years.
26 years. You sold everything from car parts to television.
To water.
Sold water.
Yeah. Go into a store and buy water every day. And it was free when we first got here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
yeah, he was very high up in retail operations management, regional management.
Director. It's you know what? I would say that I was good at establishing relationships. I wasn't good at nurturing them. And then when I started to learn to be good at nurturing, I started to realize that I had some raw talent, but I didn't necessarily have a good relationship with me. So I would first tell you to start with what you feel about you, and then you'll figure out what it is you're supposed to do. I think that really opens a lot of doors. I mean, it's interesting because the more we've gone into healing, the more we've realized we can heal things, heal people, heal understanding. And we kind of made a mission. Actually, I think it was a mission that was just granted to us. That's why we put each other through what we did and survived and are here just doing this and making sure we give out more than we receive. Wow, we've almost been an hour.
Yeah. But me, I have a business administration degree. So, but by trade, I've been a veterinary technician, and I did that a lot when I was a younger adult. And I've done a lot of everything, some skip tracing. Back when I knew the technology, I don't know that now. Finding people. I've also been a medium my whole life. I've never have utilized that gift until 2 or 3 years ago. I've done a lot. I've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you really have, and it's amazing. Our gifts work together, but they work separately from one another. And I noticed that, like, sometimes when I try to help and understanding, her gift actually can override it. So I've noticed that I need to step back a little bit when that happens. At first, I felt rejected because I didn't understand why I needed to be in a different space. But sometimes the message doesn't come through clearly of what's trying to be given from her aspect as it does mine. My ability to listen to your inner child is different than her ability to listen to those that surround you and guide you and actually show you all of your choices or help you try to change your choices. It's really quite a beautiful thing. But when you put those two together, it becomes this wonderful experience. So if you've never interacted with us, we do still have 30 minutes. You could sit with us and we could kind of help you see some things. We got to wrap this up because we do have some people waiting, but I wanted to drop down, so we did. 11:11. Wow, you guys joined.
Hey, Africa. That's awesome. Greetings from West Africa.
Yes.
You both help us, those of us on the side of the world. Divine blessings.
That's interesting. My father travels there a lot.
Yeah.
He does. So hello, Paul. Let's see. A couple months ago, he contacted me, and I felt he wanted to come back and be serious. It scared the shit out of me, and I said I don't want any contact with him, and now I don't feel him no more. So you rejected him, and then he cut everything off, and now you don't feel. So he wanted you to come, and you said no. So sometimes being scared is the act of us rejecting what we actually want the most. So if you're hurting because of this, or if you feel free because of this, You have to look and investigate what you actually experienced by telling or by embracing being scared versus embracing being with him. Did you see that that was a choice? When Cherry got married, you didn't wait for her to leave. What did you feel? Did you still have faith in this connection? There's a point of acceptance where you realize that you're going to be connected, but you're not going to be together. I think I went into that, but I think I started to understand that no matter what I did, she was going to be with me. And I didn't see that that was going to hinder anything. I just saw that this was going to suck for the rest of my life. And so we understand that when people come and go, God, I hate this connection. We're not together. We're not talking. And you find that place where you don't necessarily know how to surrender, but that's what actually opened doors, was the surrender to realizing I was still going to be connected to her no matter what I did. And no matter what we said, no matter how it ended, no matter what directions we were both going, it was like I still felt any step I was taking with her. The thing is I started to feel like, wait a minute, I'm here by myself and I can feel her, but by myself isn't by myself like it used to be anymore. So I realized that there was a story there that I needed to go into to realize what story about by myself was I playing, what was my role in it. And now here I am in this connection. What story am I telling myself in it? And how was I going to move forward? How was I going to take my next step if I knew that she was with me? Was it going to take my next step realizing that anybody that I was going to encounter, were they going to reflect back to me what I was doing to myself? Or was I going to go into something and realize that I could actually accept what I was doing to myself? And did I accept that she was going to be with me when I did it? It's almost like, do you accept somebody seeing who you are to yourself? So
we've kept you people for close to a year. So we'll let you go.
But we got some videos coming.
We got some videos coming out, a whole plethora of them.
Yes.
And keep an eye on them. We'll pop in live here too from time to time. Check out our website, relationshipreinvented.com. Check out the Root Camp program. Will change your life. Yes. We have a Facebook group that we interact in. We try to daily. Sometimes it's two or 3 days. We're not in there, but Twin Flame Work Group by Relationship Reinvented.
Yes.
We also have a Relationship Reinvented group
and we love
that's very it's very non-twin flamey. Mm-hmm. And then we have the group that's very twin flamey. Relationship Reinvented Twin Flame Work Group is there. You can also find us on everywhere. We're all over the place. We do offer 30-minute sessions complimentary with me and Lee personally. If you're interested, and our coaches as well offer 30-minute consultations or sessions or whatever. Info at relationshipreinvented.com, or you can go on the website and fill out the form there. Someone from our office or someone here will, we lost our office manager. She went back to school. She was an intern, but we're handling it. We'll have somebody come in soon. So we'll get back with you immediately or pretty soon. Pretty quick about it. Set up your 30-minute session with us, and I know we can help you. I know we can. We also train coaches. So if you're interested in doing what Lee and I do, you get a hold of us. We have a coaching certification program that includes the Root Camp program as well. So we're putting quality, amazing coaches out in the world, and we're pretty proud of them. And we love you guys. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us.
Hello, Japan. Hello, Coach.
Oh, Ben's here.
Yeah, one of our coaches.
One of our coaches from Japan. He's not from Japan. He's from here, but he's in Japan. He can speak Japanese. Is it Korean?
Mm-hmm. Mandarin. Mandarin. Is it?
Confirm that, Ben.
Ben can probably put up on his
he will be ready to take on clients. He's got a few weeks left, and we are going to throw him out.
And we really wanted to make sure we let this. If you really have found yourself batshit crazy in this connection, I'm glad you found our channel. I'm glad you know that you're not alone. I'm glad you're starting to realize that crazy is being in your head instead of out of it. So we're here to help you lose your mind.
By the way, Ben speaks Japanese, Chinese, Russian, and Korean.
Yes.
And hi, Ukraine.
And English.
Yeah, and
Hello,
English.
Ricky.
Hello, Ukraine. Yeah. Thank you guys for
Yes.
watching
Yeah.
for an hour and 14 seconds.
Actually, it was 11 when you started. All right. We love you. We'll talk to you soon.